What up, y'all? This is your Don Israel coming to you live from Lit, asking y'all to subscribe to the channel. So make sure y'all subscribed, make sure y'all liking the videos, make sure y'all commenting, and make sure you turn on your notifications that let you know when new videos are dropping. We're dropping them daily, and you want to be on it because we on it, all right? So keep it lit, keep it locked, subscribe, we out. Marduce is a drink. What's going on, y'all? This is your boy, your Don Israel, a.k.a. Liddy Fontaine. Pretty Liddy's what they call me. And we here with another episode of Lit, the premier platform for all things literary, swaggy, and otherwise. Today's guest is a super special guest. He came all the way down here from another part of Brooklyn, but he's originally from Detroit. The man just won a Pulitzer Prize in poetry for this badass book in front of us, titled Olio. You gonna hear a lot about it. And we're going to be talking about poetry. We're going to be talking about growing up in Detroit. And we're going to be just talking about how this man got so brilliant. This double entendre lifestyle that comes through one pen. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyehimba Jess. Thank you for coming, brother.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
So the first thing we got to do, we got a thing we call a swag cam. So we need you to stand up and walk us through the swag. Take us through that Detroit swag.
All right.
Hold on. All right. Cool. So give us the rundown.
Here just basic, white shirt.
Okay.
But I got the hat here, which has been through many travels with me.
Okay.
I've gotten attached. It's very hard to find.
Where you snatched the hat from? I know you a big hat man.
Oh man, it's been. I think I got this hat in Chicago.
Yeah.
Probably at this place called Hats Plus.
Okay.
In Chicago. I'm pretty sure that's where I got this hat from.
All right.
And it's got the feathers. So
cool.
I do that. I had this little necklace. Got this necklace on a motorcycle trip.
Okay.
That I took down to Mexico.
Okay.
I went all the way past Mexico City, and got this necklace. It's kind of just for safe travels.
Okay.
And
talisman, these pants.
These pants, you know what? I can't remember where I got these pants from.
Right. Sometimes it's the slyest things you don't have memory for.
There you go. And these shoes I got for my wedding.
Okay. Shout out to Kelly. She's in the building. Yeah. You put on blast.
My wife over there.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool.
So I haven't worn these shoes in a minute, but I was like, you know what? Shoes, hat. I thought I meant.
Yeah.
Bring them together.
All right.
And bam, here we are.
Here we are.
All right.
So that's super lit, and I'm glad you're here. So the first thing we're going to do before we start the show, earlier episodes, we used to wait quite a while, but we want to get you started, So I'm going to walk you through this drink we call Marduce.
Okay.
What it is 3 parts Martinelli's apple juice, 1 part Douce, all parts delicious.
All right.
So you're going to pop the top, and you're going to drink past the leaves.
Past the leaves.
Yeah,
okay, here we go. All right. Ba-doom. Delicious.
All right, then I'm gonna get you.
All right. Get a little octane up in there.
Yeah. You're gonna close it. You're gonna swirl it around. Get that mix going and flowing.
Douce. Get the chemical reaction going.
All right. So, boom. Thank you, man. And congratulations.
I like that.
It's smooth. It's a smooth drink. So, for people who don't know, Tyehimba Jess was the first person I had met going out to AWP the first time. It was in Minneapolis. 2015, I was getting on the plane, and I don't know what it was. We looked at each other, and we just kind of knew that right? You going to AWP?
Right.
And for people who don't know, AWP is a big writers conference for literaries. It's like the Comic-Con for writers. That's the best way I've explained it. And it's this way you get to have and be a part of a lot of good conversation, and you get to see the community that you're a part of that you often feel alienated from, because so often you're only with your cohort of people who are very small. So it's good to see just writers and editors and journalists and publishers
all over the country, all over the world, really.
Yeah, and so I first met him out there, and this is when literary swag was just interviews. It was just me doing guerrilla interviews.
It was you and your phone, right?
Yeah, me and the phone, just asking favorite 3 writers, favorite 3 clothing designers, and 3 years later, boom, we got a show. So to have you on this show is an honor. But let's talk about you, Tyehimba Jess. Give us the background of where you grew up, how you grew up, and what that life looked like.
Yeah, grew up in Detroit. Lived there till I was 18.
Okay.
Came up on the northwest side, 7 Mile and Myers,
Okay.
and went to U.D. High. And then at 18,
You have siblings, right? So this
I
paint
had
the
two
family.
siblings. Yeah, yeah.
So, older?
My sister, two, they're both older.
Okay.
My sister is a professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Okay.
And
Oh, MIT?
yeah,
Oh, you
MIT. Yeah.
said the whole name.
Hey,
You gotta say the whole name. Yeah.
M to the I to the T. And my brother is a development specialist out in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
your parents, what was
my dad was a chemist.
Word.
Yeah, he was actually first a pharmacist, then he taught chemistry at Wayne State for a while.
Okay.
And then he became a chemist for the city of Detroit.
Okay.
And my mother was a nurse, a registered nurse, who eventually ended up starting Detroit's first nursing program that included black folks, that was inclusive of black folks. So really, you're talking about late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
And at that time in the city of Detroit, there were no nursing programs that accepted black students.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So she's phenomenal parents in a lot of ways,
And so you grew up in the Motown.
In the Motown.
In the Motown, like, what was it like just growing up in that? And what was that space like?
I think the thing that I really treasure that I got out of growing up in the city of Detroit was that ever since I knew what a mayor was, the mayor was black. Ever since I knew what a city council was, the city council was black. The officials were black. So it was black empowerment in a civic level in that kind of way, and it was like a lot of fierce pride in that civic ownership of the land and all that. And then of course there were the issues of the general decline of the auto industry at the same time.
So you were born what year?
1965.
65. So is that when? So was that like 3 years before the decline of the auto? Like when does
auto really
take
when I eventually read Coleman Young's autobiography, what he really said was that the decline really began in the early 60s, late 50s, really.
Okay.
And we really started to really feel it in the 70s and the mid 70s.
Okay.
Right? And that's when, the auto companies were dealing with competition from Japanese and foreign car interests.
Yeah.
And really they were divesting from the city of Detroit and seeking places where they would not have to deal with union labor forces, etc. So they ended up going to the south, and then they would end up going further afield.
Yeah.
So growing up, kind of like in the aftermath of the heyday of the city's highest economic days, that's what I saw. So the 70s, the 80s, etc. So by 84 or so, I was, Detroit in 1984 was dealing with, a lot of issues. And I saw Chicago, went to University of Chicago, and kind of had a experience of seeing a whole different city that had a really vibrant black community, and really at that time had just elected its first black mayor, who was Harold Washington.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And
was he going to run for president? I remember Eddie Murphy joking about that, man.
Man,
you could run, Harold.
Harold could have gone so many places, it wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility in my mind for him to eventually run for president, because he was so eloquent, so genteel, so sharp. If you ever just look at old footage of Harold, and it's just he was such a together cat.
Yeah.
And unfortunately he died at towards the beginning of his second term, And anyway, so I stayed in Chicago for about 18 years. And then I came here to New York to get my MFA.
Okay. So let me ask you, in terms of like a lot of times when we think about these big, and we like in the midst of political turmoil, what were the ways in which Detroit's economic infrastructure were felt or perceived to you on a personal level, like in an everyday? Because sometimes you don't, like you said, like this happens in the late 50s, early 60s, but you don't feel it. When did you, like, was there something you felt growing up, or was this something that was just like
it was something
in the back?
It was something, Detroit, I have so much admiration for the city of Detroit and my folks in Detroit. And like, for instance, my parents stayed for decades. My dad just moved out last year. My mom finally, reached the age where she couldn't really maintain her house anymore. Now she lives with my sister. But we're determined to keep Detroit vibrant and alive. And I've always witnessed that and really had a lot of respect for it, even though I knew for myself I had to move on to a different place. But what I saw was a city that was desperately trying to stave off some kind of economic tsunami that it really had almost no control over it. And I grew up with a certain amount of respect for the big three auto companies, but also, to be honest, a certain amount of disdain for the way that they handled their business and allowed themselves to get overtaken by really upstarts in this whole auto industry game. There was no reason that they had to slip, but they got arrogant and they slipped, and they slipped and slipped and slipped. And so right now you look at the average car that somebody buys. Whenever I get in discussion with, I just had 2 Uber rides like in the last week or so, and then people start talking about Detroit and about the auto industry. I'm like, well, what kind of car are you driving?
Like you're part of the problem.
Honda, blah blah blah, etc. Well, there you go. How did that happen? Right. Well, how is it that that these tremendous economic forces, eventually had to ask for bailouts. Right. So, the reasons are very complicated. Beyond the mismanagement and the terrible cars they put out in the late 70s and the 80s. It's true. It's just a fact. They put out terrible cars. And there's there are all kinds of complicated issues involved in that. But the fact of the matter is that Detroit was almost solely dependent upon the auto industry, and when it slipped, the city slipped.
All right. Yeah, and that's heavy. We gotta move to the side. Move in. So when does writing enter your life? You said you went to University of Chicago. Was writing a part of your life at that point? Was that something you really wanted to do? Or
one thing one really great memory I have from Detroit is going to their library. Which, if you ever go to Detroit, the Detroit Institute of Arts is amazing. And the public library is so fly. It's so beautiful. I went there recently, like after not being there for years now. So I was, oh my God, this building is so incredibly well done. But I remember going to the Detroit Public Library and being, in the children's section and just devouring book after books. My dad and mom had lots of books in the house, so we were always reading and all that. And really, I had the good fortune to be part of a poetry competition in my senior year of high school. And I won second place. That was through the NAACP. Right. And at that time, I knew that I wanted to write. So I went to Chicago. I started off as an English major, but I really hated it. I hated being an English major at the University of Chicago. Partially because there were no black professors there.
No, that make you hate a lot of things.
And when I would start to do an English essay, I remember the defining moment was I did this essay and I got a C minus. It's like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite this. I can't even remember, man. I remember I was tortured over it. Got C minus, rewrote it. I got a C, then I rewrote it again. I got a C plus. And what I was thinking was, I put all this energy into this joint, and it's not even about something that I want to really write about. I had to contort myself, and so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna study something that like I'm really interested in. And at that time, I was really interested and still am interested in, local politics, politics on an international level, and some of the machinations of the University of Chicago in its local community, in Hyde Park, etc. And so I turned to public policy. That became my major.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I finished in public policy, and then what I really dug about doing that was it gave me the opportunity to see cause and effect and historical, the importance of putting things in historical context and seeing things in historical context.
Yeah.
And it taught me how to research, and it made me, look at root causes of problems, etc.
Okay.
And so that's and then at the end of that, at the very end of my college experience, I needed to save some cash.
Right.
So I took a class from University of Illinois, Chicago, and it was this class called. See, I started really wanting to be a poet. Then I was like, okay.
So so what was from writing to poetry?
Right.
What was the shift for you?
Well, I was thinking first. I started in poetry, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a journalist. And then I realized they have deadlines, like, and I'm just not that fast.
Yeah.
I'm not that fast, and I'm not that good at doing that type of thing.
Right.
But I did, I was involved with the Organization of Black Students newsletter, so I did publish that through the Organization of Black Students. But then, I decided that I was going to be politically active through public policy, and then I was going to be I was on the track to be, in the managerial, kind of a manager of social services organizations, something like that. And towards the end of my senior year, I took a class called The Black Aesthetic from this poet called Sterling Plump.
Okay.
And that was at University of Illinois. And when I saw him, the other thing that I was really interested in was one great thing about Chicago is that, it has the industry of the blues, of the electric blues. And so you have these fantastic blues musicians performing every weekend, Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Lefty Diz, Billy Branch, Larry Bell, all these cats were coming out of Chicago. And I got to see them up front, and I just fell in love with the blues. And I met this poet Sterling Plump who dug the blues, and in his work was about telling the story of the people in the blues and the connection and the kind of political commentary of the blues, and it showed me a way to fuse how those things could be fused together.
Right.
And that was a real big switch for me.
Okay.
That took me,
because it seems like what it did is like it allowed you to reconcile all those competing desires, and like, I could do this all with this one thing.
Right.
And perfect segue into this, because this is a book that damn near does it all. Right. It's history. It's historical. It's political. But it's not one of those things that when you read it, like, and that's the overwhelming thing about history is just like, it's just too overbearing. I don't even know how to understand it. And you kind of,
Well, people turn off when they hear the word history.
Yeah.
Generally, they're like, history,
Well, this is we live in an ahistorical society. We live in a society that, literally people came to get rid of the old.
But people like to hear stories.
Okay.
See, so when they hear a story, they're like, "Oh, that's an interesting story," especially stories. And I think the stories in here, they're fascinating to me.
No, yeah.
So I was thinking, when people hear stories, then they start to put it in historical context,
Right.
and in the historical context goes with the story.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell these stories that carry these histories with them, and they're just interesting people that had fascinating lives with very difficult personal integrity issues that they had to resolve through their art at a time when you had an entire population of people that was being free and experiencing freedom for the first time. And so to me, all of that, just spelled, it was something I'd never, I think one of the issues, like I said, I was really interested in the blues before, and jazz, etc. And Chicago is just a fantastic laboratory to try and see all of that up close and meet the folks up close that are doing that.
Right.
But one thing I hadn't really thought about was who are the people who were creating the music before the music was being recorded. Right.
And so much of education, our education, is we get taught stories without context. Right. Right. Exactly. So it's like, I remember what was it? I think it was some English class we got taught Marxism, but like when I learned that Karl Marx himself was like a spendthrift, I was like, wait, he was burning up cash? Like I was like, what? I need to know stuff like that. It's not to say that it undermines it, but it puts it puts it in context. It helps me understand what I'm looking at.
Right.
So take us back on the timeline. You graduate University of Chicago at what age? Like 21, 22?
I was on the slow track, man. So
I dropped in
two
classes a semester. Okay.
So I was about 24 or so.
Okay, and then you went to the MFA program.
No.
Okay.
No, what happened was, like I said, I was on the track to be involved or to work in kind of a social services context, and so I really sincerely tried to do that. And I was in several jobs that I either quit or got fired from.
Okay. What was the
okay.
What was the take us through the resume of Tyehimba Jess?
Let me see. Okay, I worked for this outfit that was I'm not going to mention any names.
All right.
But an outfit that was
Don't want to offend your political connects.
No, it's not even political. But okay, one was a outfit that did there was a brilliant idea from Harold Washington to build local school councils.
Okay.
And in these local school councils, the parents would have really essentially political control, theoretical control over the schools.
Yeah.
And my job was to help organize those councils and help the parents understand their power.
Yeah.
And that was cool until the organization I started to realize that really a major objective of the organization was to perpetuate itself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it became kind of a different thing.
You
know? And then I worked for an organization. Well, I worked teaching kind of GED classes for a while, and for about a couple different organizations. I worked for Campfire Boys and Girls. That was fun.
Now, which ones were you getting fired from? Was this?
I quit the one that was organizing local school councils. I got fired from Campfire Boys and Girls. I think I quit the YMCA. I got fired from this other one called Furman Community Services. And that's because they asked the entire staff to pay for a stolen VCR that one of the students had stolen. It got kind of crazy. It's just crazy situations. You end up seeing these fascinating, situations happen. And essentially, over a period of time, what happened was I started to realize that it was my fault because I was partially unconsciously, consciously judging some of these places by the quality of the word processor or computer that they had so that I could write my stuff. You know what I'm saying?
How good is this computer? How many?
Right. Like, I mean, I realized I was starting off with an organization that had a great computer, you know, and I could, you know, tippity tappity, you know, and do my thing and all that. This is like early 90s, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody has a computer at that point.
Right.
Practically nobody has a laptop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I would, you know, go in at night and do my thing and, you know, try and write a little play, a little script or whatever.
Okay.
You know, and then, like, eventually job after job, the computers got worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I realized I was working off of, like,
Working on a
brother.
VTech.
Yeah. You know, one of them little brother things.
Yeah.
You may not remember, but like it has practically no memory, and you can only see one line of script.
Jeez Louise, now I don't remember
It's
that.
like a fancy typewriter, more or less.
Damn.
Yeah, and that's at a certain point I realized, this wasn't really gonna. I had tried very, very hard to have a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
And I tried to the best of my ability. And at a certain point, I realized, I can't do this. So really, my first writing fellowship was courtesy of what I call the St. Ides Fellowship.
The beer?
No, St. Ides.
Oh, not St. Ides. Okay. All right.
It's the Illinois Department of Employment Security.
Okay.
My unemployment check.
Oh. It be that way sometimes.
And it was like that. It was like, I was on unemployment for about 6 months. And during that time, I wrote a chapbook. Okay. And that was really one of the best things I did. Because at the same time, I was doing all these open mics.
Yeah.
And, I was like really into it. I'm like, this is back in the day. You know that picture Love Jones? Right?
Yeah.
Right. So Love Jones, Ted Witcher was the producer.
Right.
And he was in Chicago. And this is like early 90s, 91, 2, 3 or so. There was this joint called Spices in Chicago.
Okay.
And you go there and it'd be packed. It'd take you like 20 minutes to get from one side of the room to the other. So it's just packed with poets. Everybody wanted to be a poet, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I thought everybody there was going to publish a book.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I felt about it. Because the energy was so high. You know, and so what I did was I self-published a book. This is like back in the day, like when you get a little Macintosh and this is one of the reasons I had these gigs, right? So get a Macintosh. You can do your own layout.
Yeah.
Took it to the Kinko's, stapled it, blah blah. It was called "When Niggas Love Revolution Like They Love the Bulls."
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds dope as fuck.
Like it was one of those like those long. It was like a kind of spoken word poem, but it was about Chicago was high on the Bulls at the time and everything. I was like, that's great. And I was like, studying with groups called like the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the New African People's Organization. I was like, well, what about the political prisoners? What about blah blah blah? What if we paid attention to them as well as paying attention to the Bulls? What if we paid them equal amount of attention?
Right.
Blah blah blah. And so that was the kind of gist of the poem. And then there was a sizable chapbook. It was like probably about 60 odd pages, 60 some pages. Self-published it.
So, explain if you could the sort of expansion of your understanding of poetry. So back then, when you had first come to poetry, what was your understanding of it? What language would you have given poetry now? And how did that evolve over time?
That's a really good question. I think that at that time, I saw my primary impetus was using poetry as a political tool. Okay. And I do still see poetry in a political context, but I see it in many other contexts as well. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So, that's why I write a poem like "When Niggas Love Revolution Like They Love the Bulls." You know what I'm saying? Do you have that off? Do you remember? I don't have it. I don't remember. Damn it! But you can find it. All right, I'm about to look that up. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna pull that up. But I think that what happened was I put it like I published that chapbook, and what it did was it kind of. The fortunate thing that I had at that time was I had a college degree, and I had published an actual book. And so what that allowed me to do was to work in the Chicago public schools teaching poetry.
Okay.
On a regular basis. A cat named a friend of mine, Quresh Ali Lansana, hooked me up, and he got me introduced to the schools, and that's what I started doing. I'm segueing from my 9 to 5s from unemployment into like being essentially an independent contractor teaching in the schools.
Yeah.
That lasted for about 8 or 9 years,
Right.
right? And then I started slamming at eventually a certain point in time.
And by slamming, you...
I mean, I was on slam teams. I was on the Green Mill slam team in 99 and 2000.
Okay.
Right. But what happened was I learned a lot from slam. That's a whole nother conversation. But what I wanted, Toni Morrison says something about, write the book that you want to see in the world.
Right.
And I knew that I was just like hit to the bone with the blues,
Yeah.
And one person that I kind of knew about but didn't know all the way about was Leadbelly.
Okay.
And he had just had a fascinating trajectory.
Yeah.
He was a man who was trying to renew himself through his art.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that I started writing about Leadbelly, that's exactly what I was trying to do as well.
Okay.
So when I wrote about Leadbelly,
yeah,
and his trajectory from, he was in prison twice, etc., and he was really trying to transform his life through his art.
Yeah.
I was feeling that energy and feeding it into the poems that eventually became my first book, Leadbelly.
Yeah.
And I started writing Leadbelly. Another thing that happened during this time is Kaveh Khanum.
Yeah.
I should say, is that I was in the second workshop of Kaveh Khanum in '97.
Okay.
And I
started in '96.
In '96.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in '97, so I started it. It came back in '99. Came back in 2001, and in 2001 I introduced some of the poems from that I just had off the top of my head in the workshop. They were well received in workshop, and I was like, okay, maybe I should follow this thread.
Yeah.
And eventually those
I got you. I got it.
Eventually those poems ended up being, an 80-odd page book called Leadbelly, and that got me started. But what happened during that in between time was I was reading and studying and seeing and trying to observe and absorb all the poetry that was happening around me. Yusef in particular, Marilyn Nelson, Gwendolyn Brooks, Sonia, Haki, Amiri, and I could go on and on. But observing them, trying to learn from so many artists, and listening to the music around them, and then I was thinking about that history. Leadbelly was one of those characters that lay like just at the edge of America's phonographic memory.
Okay.
Because he really started recording in the 1930s or so.
Okay.
But he had started his career way before that,
right,
etc. And he was kind of preserved in prison, so to speak, as a kind of artifact, and fought between being an artifact and a musician, etc. And that book kind of forged me a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of forming and making me know what direction I could go.
So poetry started out for you as a political tool.
Yes.
And then evolves into what?
Well, I would say the music really started. I started thinking about the music a lot. Okay. And the way the African American music is almost inseparable from our literary history. Because our we have to remember, we were not allowed to read and write on pain of death.
Yeah.
So the music became the literature.
Yeah.
And after emancipation, that really that had been we had adopted that so fiercely into our understanding of the literature that it infused it just infused our actual literature. So you look at the preacher's sermon, you look at spirituals, you look at gospel, you look at W.B. Du Bois in The Soul of Black Folk, where he begins every chapter with hymns. With hymns, right? It's almost impossible to extract the music from the literature, and so that became part of my quest, is studying that line of where the music and the literature, and trying to look at how they work together. What is the balance between them, and that ended up being the first book, and then it kind of, that thread continues in Olio.
So what was funny about that is that I was John Maria was on the show, and he has been talking about how like his earlier his poetry, his entrance to poetry was hip hop, and even with me, I learned a lot about writing because my father taught me how to speak by rapping. He would give me like these raps for me that I was to recite to him, and that's how I learned how to speak.
Wow,
was rap.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So when you talk about the music, one of the difficulties for me when I write essays is I want to give it a musical quality, like something that like lilts and moves like a song does, like the rise and the fall, the speed, the retraction, all of those things. Whereas like when I was being taught how to write, which is a different thing, was there was no music in the words. A lot of words I was reading, and a lot of it came from the facts that, and this is like no shots to none of the writers, but like we was reading like J.D. Salinger's and like you know the Mark Twain's and like the classics, but these were like also like not my canons, right? Because my canon at that time was like Biggie's and Jay's, and like it was like that was what I was looking for for language to do, like stand up and all. So like this book, and you talk about, you open it with the definition of olio, a miscellaneous mixture of heterogeneous elements, a hodgepodge, a miscellaneous collection as of literary or musical selections. And then also the second part of a minstrel show, which featured a variety of performance acts and later evolved into vaudeville. And so to me, what this is like literally, there is not a such thing as a voice, but a chorus. And to really only understand a song is to understand a song in its sum total parts. And not just like as the single final product, but like what makes, like you said, what stories create the story that we all come to.
Right.
Yeah.
I can, I think it is, in a lot of ways, it is a chorus, and it is an olio. Yeah. Because it's a bunch of different disciplines.
Right.
People from different disciplines coming together. Yeah. To perform their stories. Right. Right. And that was part of the objective of the book, is to bring these people that were outside of the actual minstrel show, and sometimes deeply ensconced in the minstrel show, and bring them together and have them tell their stories together. Right.
And I line up all my books, so
that's great.
This is I want to talk to you about this type. I've never seen this style of poem. Granted, I don't be reading poetry that much, but for anybody, I don't know if y'all could probably see it, but this poem, what would you call this poem? These two
those
lines?
Are syncopated sonnets.
Okay, these exist before you?
No.
Oh shit. Okay, well
no. I created the syncopated sonnet.
Okay, so explain.
but the form is called a contrapuntal poem. Right?
So explain that.
Counterpointing.
Explain that to me.
That means on one side, if the camera can see, on one side you have one dialogue, and on the other side you have another dialogue. Right. And they both are contained to themselves, but together, read across, they form a different narrative. Right. That narratives that inform each other. Right. Right. So that's point counterpoint.
Right. And so how? Because when I'm reading it, I see what it's doing. Right. And the first thing I was like, I was on the train, like, oh shit. Like, because I saw, like, at first I was reading it across, I'm like, no, this is here for a reason. Right. And a lot of times, my difficulty with reading poetry was the way it gets taught. We're not taught about the different ways to read it. Right. Like, you get taught in theory how to write it. Right. Or what makes a poem, but how to read a poem is as important as how you write it. And so when I was reading it, this line taught me I was reading it wrong. And so I read it this way. And then it was like, it's funny because music can do so many, like the ear can catch so many sounds at once, but a pen can only pick one word at a time, right?
I feel you.
So, all right, how did you develop this? And how long did it take?
It took a while. Every one of those went through many drafts.
Yeah.
But really, the idea was to bring two historical figures together,
Right.
in counterpoint, in conversation with each other, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously.
Right.
And to have one voice inform the other voice. Really, it's about performing a dialectic between these historical actors.
Sort of like a call and response.
Right, it's exactly is what it is.
Yeah.
It's call and response, clap back.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's clap
Yeah.
back, and because really, in a certain way, the voice on the right hand of the page as you're looking at it, really in certain ways has the last word, and generally, that is the person of color.
Right.
Speaking.
So could you read this?
Yeah.
Read it how it's intended to be read, because I think that's going to just help a lot of people. So
Okay, you know what? This is General Bethune versus W.C. Handy, 1885. And I'm just going to say very briefly, General Bethune was the slave owner who owned a man called Blind Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Blind Tom was born blind and autistic.
Okay.
In around 1849 or so, right? And the Bethune family owned Blind Tom through his life, past the Civil War, past emancipation. They managed him, and by manage they basically had him going out doing performances, etc.
Yeah.
And during the course of his life, they made somewhere between $800,000 to $1 million off him.
God damn.
Until the day he died.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I want you to read this.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the other side is
So-
W.C. Handy, who was considered the father of the blues. So I'm going to read General Bethune's side first, and then W.C. Handy's, and then I'm going to read them together.
Okay.
All right. So this is General Bethune. Blind, half crazy, or illiterate. This mastermind of piano, he's a gold mine. But Lord, he's a demon when he gets his blood all hot. Tom's got to be feeling high if he's going to bring the music to life. He'll stomp the ground and cry like a child, and won't stop till he gets his way. He'll give strife to anyone who plays his songs wrong. Like when he pushed that off-tune girl off his stool. He cursed her hard. And he's been known to strike folk who play his songs clumsily. See, fools get God's grace just like a child. He just might earn 20,000 blessed bucks per tour, minus management and upkeep fees, of course. And this is W.C. Handy's. Old Blind Tom must be some great hoodoo of sound working them keys. He's got that mojo magic hard. Gets some whites steamed, boils their blued spirits 'cause he don't care about offending folks. He got a strong conjure on him. I hear that he'll talk back to a white man all day, to no-talent white women, too. I mean, they say that blind boy got crackers all scared and warned against messing up his music. No, he don't take kindly to no tone-deaf with dumb hands. He shucks 'em. But watch, Tom will make a handsome sum for somebody, I bet. And maybe they let him save some of that dough. Enough to send pennies to mama back home.
Crazy.
So read together, they read as such. I'll try and switch the voices. Blind, half crazy, or illiterate. This old Blind Tom must be some great hoodoo mastermind of piano. He's a gold mine of sound working them keys. He's got that mojo. But Lord, he's a demon when he gets his magic hard. Gets some whites steamed, boils their blued blood all hot. Tom's got to be feeling high spirits, 'cause he don't care about offending folks if he's going to bring the music to life. He got a strong conjure on him. I hear he'll stomp the ground and cry like a child. That he'll talk back to a white man all day and won't stop till he gets his way. He'll give strife to no-talent white women, too. I mean, to anyone who plays his songs wrong. Like they say, that blind boy got crackers all scared when he pushed that off-tune girl off his stool and warned against messing up his music. He cursed her hard, and he's been known to strike. No, he don't take kindly to no tone-deaf folk who play his songs clumsily. See, fools with dumb hands, he shucks 'em. But watch, Tom will get God's grace just like a child. He just might make a handsome sum for somebody. I bet earn 20,000 blessed bucks per tour. And maybe they let him save some of that dough. Minus management and upkeep fees, of course. Enough to send pennies to mama back home.
This is, oh my goodness. Oh my God. Yeah, so this is
that's a syncopated sonnet.
shit.
And so it's called a sonnet because they're both both sides are in sonnet forms. They're both
You made Dave take the headphones off.
They're both Shakespearean sonnets on either side, so they obey the rules of a sonnet.
Yeah. Okay, so besides like the brilliance of even the reading of it, what I think it also explored, like what it showed, was like the sort of intellectual, emotional, like schizophrenia that Black people have to live and perform. Like
consciousness.
That double consciousness that's immediately there. We talk about W.B. Du Bois, and that's something that you're always aware of. Is like how this one action can mean two different things, and so like that's like you know what it reminded me of so much is the movie Deep Cover. I don't know if you remember.
I remember Deep Cover, Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah,
man.
And that first question,
187 on an undercover car.
But it was that question he had asked. Remember the guy that I think that was the head of the department was like, "What's the difference between a nigger and a black man?" And
I remember that was at the beginning.
Answer was like, the nigga would be the one thinking about answering that question.
Right.
And so these these things, these what they call double
contrapuntals, syncopated sonnets.
Syncopated sonnets. That is literally, I think, the way so many people of color live and survive and have to survive in this country, of thinking like it's literally like, and it looks like a brain, like like it looks like right side, left side of the brain.
I never thought about that. I'm gonna use that one.
Well, yeah, you got to. I mean, you gave me that reading. I got to give you something. But it's like left side, right side of the brain, and so it's like, okay, if I make this move, I know how this move is going to translate to these people. Right. And it's that thing that, like what James Baldwin said, like the difficulty of, like, you know, if white people like a particular black person, black people distrust them. But ironically, if that black person doesn't get quote unquote access to white folks, he can't help black. So it's like you're constantly having to how do I move in this system? But I only have one body, right? So even with your pen, it's like, how are you making these decisions when you can only give? Because you can't sing while someone's playing a piano on the page. Right. Like, so it's like you only have one pen to make these decisions. So yeah, like,
but it's like it's jumping in and out of every persona, and also I think it's also about trying to see every perspective. Yeah. You know that and see where all these perspectives are coming from, and all the possibilities that they try to either rationalize or fully adopt. You know.
Well, so, you know, often we talk about, and I said that I wrote a piece about, like, you took a picture at the NBCC Awards, and one of the things I said, you know, this thing of like waiting for your just due versus knowing you were overdue. Like, like getting paid something and being grateful for this payment is like, you actually owe me more. Right? And I feel like this Pulitzer was like you getting, like, this is just like, that's a down payment on what you actually deserve in terms of the brilliance you bring. But what was that like? That moment where
I found out. Man.
You was in the crib?
Yeah, I was in.
So this is the call of the Pulitzer we talking about, just for people to
right.
speak. Yeah.
Well, I didn't get a call.
You didn't get a call?
No. They didn't call me or anything. What happened was they don't tell you anything. They just announce it. Okay. So really, what happened was I was sitting by my computer, and a friend of mine, Patrick Rosal, who you should bring him on the show. Okay. And he texted me, and he said, "Pulitzer Black." I was like, what? And so I looked online, and I see they live streamed the announcement.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I saw them doing the announcement, and then they said Pulitzer for poetry, and they said Tyehimba Jess. Olio. I was like, so it was a lot of. Oh my
Were you
God.
in the crib?
Yeah, I was at home.
Okay.
93rd and Oglesby.
Okay.
Yup. And I just fell out the chair, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just.
Then the phone went. Of course, your phone just went.
Yeah,
crazy.
and the phone started blowing up. The first person I called was my wife, Kelly.
Okay.
And she's like. Then I called my mom. Then I called my dad. Then I called my sister and my brother. And amazingly, it's weird, because I never catch them all. At that time, they were all at the phone, so I called all of them.
Yeah.
And then I called Sterling Plump.
You have to go down the lineage.
Yeah,
you have to
it was just being in shock, man, and then just like absorbing it, So,
Yeah.
I think also thinking about the great thing about that was that back in the day I had the opportunity and the privilege to meet Gwendolyn Brooks,
Mm-hmm.
who was the first black winner of the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, and it was this year has been the 100th anniversary of her birth.
Wow.
So it was like being in Chicago on the 100th anniversary of Gwendolyn Brooks' birth, and winning the Pulitzer. It was like everything came together. I was like, I knew that I knew I'd come back to Chicago for love, but I didn't know that I didn't know all the ramifications of that. So it was really everything. It was like everything came together.
Now, do people back straighten differently when they see you? Oh, Tyehimba, yes. We saved you a seat. Get up.
Well, man, it gives me a little more access to people. You know what I'm saying? It's people
get you that blue check
more likely to pick up the
Twitter.
phone.
Yeah, and that's always good. You need some phones.
It is what it is.
You need those phones to pick up.
Yeah.
Michelle Adjins, I don't know if you know her. She was the first black woman photographer to win the Pulitzer. From New York Times. She told me a story of what she did with the money. She said that when she got her money, she had a big ass fish fry. She said that she's from Chicago. She was like, she was living in Brooklyn at the time. She was like, listen, I'm gonna have this big fish fry. She's like, who are you gonna invite? She was like, listen, if we fry it, they gonna come. So she was like, she had a bunch of catfish flown up from like South Carolina somewhere. But I just thought that was like the dopest story of like what to do. What did you do, if it's not too personal, with that money?
I keep it 100%, man. I walked that check straight to the bank. I did.
Thank you.
I went directly to the bank, and I was like, because I'm trying to save to get some land. Just be 100%.
Yeah. You got to do that.
But we got some splurging on.
Okay.
We got some splurging on.
That's dope.
We going to Hawaii in January.
So how did you meet Kelly? I think she's
man.
so like it's a crime, and I'm learning how not to commit it. So often when we talk to writers who are in quote unquote the driver's seat or whatever, we never talk about the people who are the drivers. Like you said, the stories of the story.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And she's in the book in the back. You
Yeah.
talk to her about being the open ear that listens to you constantly.
Right.
So how did you meet?
I met Kelly years ago in the city of Chicago.
Right.
We worked on a gig together. It was my last year in Chicago, and
how old are you then?
What was I, 30? 36, 37.
Okay.
38, coming on. I don't know.
39,
36. And we met and we worked on a gig together, and we really just were kind of two ships passing in the night in a lot of ways. And then I went to get my MFA on. Then I did that here in New York. I was here for a couple of years. Then I came back to the state of Illinois to teach at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign.
Okay.
And that was back in 2005, and that's when we met, and we hooked up again and started things. But then we kind of had a long distance kind of thing happening over the years.
Right.
And, eventually, to make a long story short, I, I decided I just couldn't, get through the rest of my life without having her at my side.
That's dope.
I dropped the ring on her last year.
Just dropped it on. So what's the one thing you can say you learned being in a relationship with your wife? The one thing you learned. I could tell you.
Patience and forgiveness and listening.
There you go.
I think that those are the things that I've learned. The value of. I've been I'm a lot more patient than I used to be.
Right.
And some of that came with age, and I've learned more to forgive other people.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in a selfish way, so that I can forgive myself. No, I'm serious.
But
to keep it real.
Yeah.
To forget, if I can't forgive other people around me, then how can I expect them to forgive me, or for me to forgive myself?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and to move forward, and to embrace the now.
Absolutely.
And and listen to my heart. So a lot, I've learned a lot from this lady, and so I really, I really appreciate having her in my life.
That's dope.
Yeah.
You always gotta shout out the women that support us.
Yeah,
I was gonna make sure that happened for me, for my own thing, because I realized in my own right, and I didn't do it enough. Like the women were periphery in my life,
but really they're central.
Yeah, and that's really what that was for. So before you get out of here, the literary swag. When we met 3 years ago, your literary swag was one thing, but you got a Pulitzer now, so I don't know if you like burning down Bergdorf now. I don't know if you buying Gucci, Gucci sliding socks, just like give me the top shelf everything, brother.
Man, you know what? I've been living out kind of sort of out of a suitcase.
Okay.
For the last year.
Yeah.
But now that I'm back in some digs, so we just moved back 2 weeks ago. Now I can really get my outfit. I will say I brought 3 suits in the last year.
That suit you wore to the NBC.
Yeah,
that was a bad suit.
Thank you.
That was a bad suit.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
That was a bad. I'm gonna post that picture because that was a bad suit.
That's
why I had to also make sure the picture got taken.
We went out special. Kelly helped me pick that suit.
Yeah. So the 3 writers for your literary swag.
3 writers, 3 literary swag.
No, 3 writers, and then we're gonna do the clothing. The design.
So I just choose a writer. You know who? Yusef Kominyaka, man.
Okay.
That cat's he has a definite style.
Okay.
Who else?
Oh, this is just your favorite 3 writers, not the favorite 3 writers who are stylish.
He would count for both.
Okay.
Favorite 3 writers. You know what? I'd say Toni Morrison.
Okay.
And Ernest Gaines.
Okay.
That's 3 off the top.
All right.
2 of them are novelists, but
that's your swag.
Really
that's
genre
why we
is,
feel it.
It's what we use to market books.
Yeah.
That's really, really what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the swag.
Yeah. Swag?
So your shoes, where you like to get your shoes from, where you like to get your hats. Even if it's not a particular brand, it's do you like vintage shopping?
You know what? I need to get some more brims like this.
Okay.
I need to get me some more. And I'm starting to lean more, I love me a nice tailored leather jacket.
Okay.
I usually am rolling with some kind of ankle boots type of situation.
Yeah. I know you like your ankle boots. I peeped that over the time I've known you.
Yeah, I usually roll like that. And I ride a motorcycle.
Okay.
So I love my motorcycle jacket.
There you go. You just all of it.
Yeah,
all of it. So where can people follow you
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter.
Your name?
Tyehimba Jess.
Okay.
On Twitter.
All right.
Tyehimba Jess on Facebook.
Yeah.
I might have to start another page on the Facebook too.
Yeah, you got too many friends now.
Yeah, it's getting up there. Yeah.
Everybody's like request.
Yeah.
So if y'all want to cop Olio, it's in wherever books are sold. It's a $25 book, but it's damn well worth it. It's everything in there. It's poetry. There's interviews in there.
Has fold-out pages.
Fold-out pages
that tear out of the book.
Come on, man. He giving you money's worth. This is
They tear neatly out of the book.
You ain't getting this. Ain't no
for a reason.
No poo. But you want to explain why?
You can take some of the pages and some of the poems. When you fold into from 2-dimensional objects into 3-dimensional objects. So they fold from.
Do mine real quick.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna demonstrate this right here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take one for example. Okay.
I get to tell grandkids that Lord willing, have Tyehimba Jess fold it. If Granddaddy talk about this one more time.
Now I've never held this book in my hands before, right?
Right.
Here you go. That's how smoothly.
Right.
Oops. That it tears out of the book. Right. No tears. Right there. That's to the craftsmanship on Wave's part.
Okay.
They did a fantastic job. Now I'm going to explain briefly. This is what is when you read this poem. It's about two incredible minstrel performers.
Okay.
Named Burt Williams and George Walker.
Okay.
And Burt Williams is on one side like a stand-up comedian, and George Walker's on the other side.
Okay.
But each poem reads, I put it very briefly, each line connects to every line that surrounds it. So in other words, this line reads to the line below it, above it, diagonal to the side, and also
like reading all directions.
Diagonally down. Right, exactly.
That's crazy.
Also, each line, whenever you see a period, is recursive. So in other words, I'm going to read one to you, for instance, here. So I want to make, we'll be baptized clean. I want to make it so each face will be baptized clean.
Oh, wow.
So it's masked on my face, full of fret about humanity. You take what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like every line, when there's a period, it's recursive upon itself.
This is like...
So essentially, what that does is it reads all the way down. It also reads all the way up. Okay. It also reads from this side, from the left side to the right side. You did? So that means that the entire left side connects with every line on every adjacent line on the right side. So what that means is you can take this and you can fold it as such, right? And you have not just a two-dimensional depiction, but you have a 3-dimensional depiction. That is a cylinder, right? That also works from the bottom to the top, right? You dig? So once again, you have a cylinder. But that's important because you're dealing with a 2-dimensional, like minstrelsy was about a 2-dimensional, 1-dimensional caricature.
Right.
Right? But when you're talking about making fully developed people, their characters, they have 3 dimensions, right? They have depth.
Right.
And that's what 3 dimensions does. It lends depth to a 2-dimensional plane. You dig? So what that happens when you can do both of those things at the same time, I'm gonna make it very. Usually I would cut down the dotted edge here. Okay. That means when you have this side and this side connecting, right? You have what is called a torus. Torus. That is essentially the shape of a bagel or a donut. Right. That reads around and around, and internally and externally. You dig? Okay.
Yo, this dude is better. Oh my goodness.
There's one last twist.
Okay.
And that is a half twist.
Okay.
That goes as such, which means you have a Mobius strip at the end. Okay. So you have one side reading into the other, etc. Ad infinitum. Okay. So that is the reason. How the
hell did you what? Like what? Like how? Like how?
A lot of revision.
Yo, how many people did this come with? Like directions?
It does. There are directions in the back of the book. There are in the index. There are directions.
Well, they're very.
It's very. I put it like this. it's very hard to explain how to do that because
This is
people
why
are not used to doing that.
this show just became that much more lit because we got the full like manual to how to read. That is
Right.
Yeah. Damn.
Right.
All right. So for coming on the show, I'm all like I'm done. This is like watching Michael Jackson at the like Motown 25. Like, wait, what the heck you do with his feet? Like, this is yours, man. For coming on the show.
Oh man, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? Oh, there you go. What?
Yeah, this is for being lit, dude. You like above lit. I like.
I'm lit.
Yeah, no, I like. I don't even know. Like,
that.
I wasn't. This was the last thing I was expecting ever in my life. Today, you literally made the day, man. You made my week with this.
Thanks. See, when I do, that's one of the reasons I do the readings is because I take the audience through that whole thing and I explain it.
Yeah. All right. So damn. Do you have anything coming up? Any events?
Man, I'm gonna be in different parts of the country over the next, over the upcoming month. So South Carolina.
My mind is just
all over the place.
Oh my goodness! So this has been another episode of. Were you done? I'm sorry. I'm good. I'm still tripping. I'm tripping. This has been another episode of Lit. Please follow Tyehimba Jess. Buy this book. Don't go to no library. Don't shortchange yourself. Buy the book, $25.
And don't be afraid to tear the pages out.
Yeah. This is
deconstruct in order to reconstruct. That's what
he's not stopping. This has been another episode of Lit. I'm your Don Israel, here with Tyehimba Jess. Shout out to Pink Pig Productions and Surreal Jewels. Catch us again. We out.
Peace.